It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by ANZ Home Loans for financial well-beings.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Breakfast as we cover 7 days a week, the very latest in property news, and it's available to you from 6 a.m. as heard on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts and Amazon. Not sure what time you get yourself out of bed, but real estate people certainly tend to get up nice and early, some of them getting up at 5 a.m. And it is a Thursday, June the 6th today. Australia's GDP figures, now they were released yesterday and have shown minimal growth. There was jostling for position with the news, and in just a moment we will have some reaction, some of those key comments made by the Treasurer Jim Chalmers as it relates to the housing market. Alan, thank you for your email. Yesterday, I gave out the wrong email address by mistake for those wanting to get in touch. I said it slightly wrong. It is myrealestatepodcast@gmail.com. I said property podcast. And Alan, you were very quick to swoop in and save the day, so thank you for that. Any suggestions or questions, let us know. myrealestatepodcast@gmail.com. Now, yesterday we were talking about the shift that people were making to buying units. The move towards purchasing units is clear, with 39% of suburbs across Sydney, Brisbane, Melbourne and Hobart being more affordable for units compared to houses, which average at 20.5%. That came from ASTI yesterday from PRD. And joining us this morning is Lauren Jones, a buyer's agent there in Brisbane, who is seeing that firsthand, and she is dealing with first home buyers as they get set to enter the real estate market. And a very good morning to you, Lauren. Welcome to the Real Estate Breakfast this morning.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Now, older apartments, people are pretty much looking at these in terms of, there's a few reasons and we'll break them down, but strata fees when people are buying some of these old apartments, I note that you've said that they can run anywhere between $4,000 to $5,000 a year. So people need to really do the due diligence, don't they?
Yeah, correct. And what I've found is that in the last 12 months, the cost of these strata fees has actually gone up. A big portion of that strata fee is building insurance. In Brisbane, we had a major flood event back in 2022. And I think that's increased a lot of the insurances as part of the levies as well. People tend to be more drawn to these older apartment styles because in Brisbane, $4,000 to $5,000 is on the cheaper side. And that's because you're not having to pay for additional amenities like swimming pools or lifts.
And there's a little bit of a perception, tell us about this, among some buyers that new apartments are not built as well as the older apartments. Now, I'm not sure whether that's right or wrong, but you're dealing with people that have that perception.
You know, it's funny. And a lot of people say to me, you know, they don't make them like they used to. And it can come quite true with apartments. We find often cheaper builds where they're trying to cram as many into the complex to maximise profits. Yes, we do see a lot more issues at building and pest inspections with those styles of properties than we do at older properties. However, I do find that newer builds that are more luxury or smaller complexes, they do tend to be fine as far as the building structure.
Let's just sort of break it down in terms of where the market is hot at the moment. You're seeing that two-bedroom market really run off into the sunset at the moment.
Absolutely. For a long time in Brisbane, no one really wanted units, but as the price of houses went up, people decided to compromise on the dwelling as opposed to compromising on the location, which has had this big push into units. I know CoreLogic's data shows that units are up about 8% this year, but from what I'm seeing on the ground in these inner ring locations, so I'm talking, maybe 2 to 5 kilometres from the CBD, a lot of these have gone up $100,000 in, the last 6 months or so. You're getting lines out the door for open homes, perhaps 20 written offers on a property. It's extremely competitive, and there's also very low supply as well.
And just in terms of those first-time buyers at the moment, how much of that is going on in terms of business? Because I note that you are a buyer's agent and not all first-home buyers can afford to engage with you.
Yeah, it's funny. First home buyers are actually one of our key demographics that we work with. So we know that a lot of first home buyers are strapped for cash. So we offer competitive fees for those below a certain budget, and we actually allow them to pay that off by a payment plan if they really need. That's helping us work with more first home buyers. The value for using a buyer's agent has probably never been greater for a first home buyer though, because if they're not buying this month because they're not confident or they don't understand the market yet, they're probably going to have to pay maybe $15,000 the next month for a similar apartment anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And single females, this is interesting. 9 out of 10 units that you have recently sold has been sold to single females for apartments. We will come back in just a moment and we will ask Lauren to break that down for us. We'll do that next.
Each week, we bring you in-depth real estate discussions, including inspiring stories from homeowners, knowledgeable real estate professionals and economists. Whether you're a buyer, seller, or just a real estate enthusiast, we are your ultimate property podcast.
One of the key features of the consumption data, spending has been dominated by essentials, by non-discretionary items, and also people have needed to cover something like an extra $30 billion in mortgage interest costs in the quarter alone because of those higher interest rates as well. So if you look at the household spending data, essential household spending grew by 0.5% in the quarter, faster than the discretionary spending at 0.3%. Discretionary spending barely grew in annual terms, up just 0.1% through the year. But we also see that household disposable income was up 1.1% in the quarter to be 5.2% higher through the year. And whether it's the wage increases or the government's tax cuts, which flow from next month, that will provide some more support for household incomes as well.
Let's fuel your passion for property together. Join us, along with our industry experts, to help inspire and inform your next real estate decision.
And it is a Real Estate Thursday. Talking real estate, talking property, this time in Brisbane. Lauren is with us. We're going to look, Lauren, at the single female market for apartments. A lot of them are buying. 9 out of the last 10 that you've sold are coming from females.
Yeah, correct. So I guess even to break that down a little bit further, so we bought for 15 single females this year. 9 of those have been apartments. And then of the apartments or units that we have purchased, 9 of the 10 were single females. What we tend to find is that security is a big issue for single females, and also the ability to lock up and leave the property. Another thing that we do find quite common, and often why people engage people like us, is because they also have the added complexity of needing to bring their dog or pet into the property. So perhaps they need garden space or a bigger balcony to be able to suit the dog, as well as clauses put in the contract to ensure that the dog is allowed. So yeah, we're seeing a massive shift of single females buying apartments.
Is that security question, has that sort of come up a little bit more in the last few years, do you think?
I haven't seen it come up anymore, actually.
I tell you, the reason why I ask that is, like, since we've gone through COVID, you know, there's all sorts of crazy stuff that seems to be happening. I mean, we don't need to talk about it, but when they pick up a knife, they're not too scared to use it. And there's all sorts of crazy activity, people, you know, being locked up and quite violent. So that's the reason why I say whether or not you've seen over the last 3 years or even in the last 12 months, it's sort of risen.
I have noticed an uptick in people wanting surveillance features or security features once they've purchased the property, that's for sure. So whether it be electronic locks or CrimSafe on the doors, things like that. So yeah, I have seen a shift there.
And tell us about first home buyers. Is this true that first home buyers tend to go for the older units? You might have said that in the setup, while downsizers are looking at more like the off the plans.
Yeah, I do find most first home buyers go for the older style units. A big part of that is the budget. They do tend to come with a lower price. Often they may be in a more original condition or with minor renovations. It can often be a good strategy for a first home buyer as well to buy something that needs a bit of work, because if they can put some money into that property and improve the value, it's going to help them when either they want to release equity to buy their next home or buy an investment. We also do find that, a lot of downsizers or people who are purchasing an apartment for lifestyle reasons, they do tend to go for the newer style units. I often find as well, they really like 3-bedroom units, and often they like to have 2 car spaces. Now, that comes with a price. In Brisbane at the moment, you probably need $900,000 plus to start to buy those style of units. Downsizers often like to future-proof the property, and those units tend to have lifts as well. They do tend to have higher body corporate fees. You're probably looking at starting at $7,000 normally, and that's really just to kind of cover the additional amenities that come with the complex.
Yeah, okay. And is it true that agents classify apartments built before the early 2000s as old and those built after the 2000s as new? Is that the way it works?
There's no hard and fast rule really there. I would probably consider it similar, and you notice a big difference from 90s to 2000s trends as well. So the 90s units, they still tend to be pretty colourful and laminate bench tops, whereas a lot of the early 2000s or 2000 onwards units tend to be more neutral, white kitchens, things like that.
And just how busy have you been in 2024? Sounds like very busy.
Oh, absolutely. Blown off my feet. In Brisbane, there's such little supply and such high demand. So, even if we talk to a buyer inquiry today and they don't engage with us, there's a very good chance that 6 months rolls around and they're still looking, and, the market's grown by maybe $100,000 and they're getting a bit desperate to buy, and they'll start to consider using us again. So, we've been a bit overwhelmed for work for a large chunk of the year. Yes, we do know about a lot more properties and we have a greater chance of securing the property, but we're still not magicians. Like, we can't pull a property out of a hat if no one wants to sell it. So that's the hard part about being a buyer's agent at the moment.
Yeah, very frustrating, of course, particularly if somebody is ready to go and they're just hesitating. And it must be frustrating because you're watching these people and you know the market inside out. You're not twisting somebody's arm up their back, but you are highlighting the fact that, if you muck around, it's only going to cost you more money within 6 months. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, a lot of buyers, they'd rather not pay for a professional because they think the fees are too much. And then, 6 months down the track, they end up getting really bad buyer fatigue and they just kind of give up.
All right then, Lauren. Well, that is really interesting with some of those notes that you have highlighted this morning. Thanks for coming on to the Real Estate Breakfast, and enjoy your Thursday.
Thanks so much for having me. I absolutely will.
Don't navigate the real estate market alone. Let us help guide you in the world of real estate every day. Make better informed decisions with the latest news and insights.
I have heard quite a lot of stories and a lot of case studies where people in Sydney have chosen to migrate interstate. A lot of them have gone to Queensland. Some have gone to Hobart to search for that more affordable price point.
Sandy and Lisa there in Potts Point, of course, they're saying that they're looking at going to the Gold Coast. But if you look at Brisbane now, of course, that is the second most expensive city. I mean, it's just unbelievable. It's mind-boggling what has happened to Brisbane.
It stayed growing even throughout cash rate hikes. because of all of that growth, Melbourne just couldn't compare. And so, Brisbane eclipsed Melbourne's prices as of January, and it still just kept on growing. And that's why we're now the second most expensive capital city compared to Sydney.
We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.